Hey everybody, today is Friday. My name is Garrett Hartle, and this is Reach Out Reptiles. And you're not gonna wanna miss this two-part Free Tip Friday series to answer the question, if I wanna start a little mini reptile business or hobby breeding thing, what kind of animals should I buy? With so many options out there, how do I know what animal to buy? Now, in this day and age, so much of the reptile industry has moved away from keeping whatever kind of interesting species you can pretty much find in your backyard to keeping these exotic species or morphs. And in order to do that, there's been a shift from using wild-caught animals to captive bred animals. One of the sad things about it is that as a collector, if you're just getting into reptiles, you might feel a lot of pressure that you have to breed your reptiles. Do you have to breed them? No. You don't have to breed your pet reptiles any more than you would have to breed your dog or cat. So it's perfectly fine just to have a pet reptile for fun. But if you were gonna start your own kind of like hobbyist reptile breeding business, or maybe even something more, where do you start? I wanted to break down and do just a little two-part series discussing one particular aspect of how to breed reptiles because I think it's the one that most people ask first. It might not actually be the most important question, so you might as well think about that, but it is the one that people ask the most, so I wanted to address it. And that question is this: what kind of reptiles should I buy first? Well, the answer to this one is obvious. Super dwarf and dwarf reticulated pythons. No, just kidding. I am totally biased. I mean, that's all we do here at Reach Out Reptiles. But the principles that I want to teach you are things that you can kind of apply across the board. Now, I actually started commercially breeding reptiles, that is, breeding them in large numbers for a profit when I was 14 years old. And I started in my parents' house, obviously, in my bedroom, breeding blizzard lizard leopard geckos. Hopefully I can provide a little bit of insight to you guys from, the past almost 20 years of breeding reptiles. I want to talk about two things that you definitely want to consider if you're going to assemble a breeding group of animals. And the first one is this: before you start buying animals, you need to determine the ideal male to female ratio that you need to keep. So for example, with my super dwarf reticulated pythons, I've kind of learned if I were only going to have 6 snakes, I wouldn't want 3 males and 3 females. I would want 1 male and 5 females. And that male could breed all those different females throughout the year if I'm able to rotate them and get clutches at different times of the year, and he would still be totally healthy, totally happy, and have all his little mini harem there. Now, some animals might need to be kept in groups, so you may have 1 male for every female. If you're breeding something like a red-eye crocodile skink, for example, you're gonna need to break those up into smaller groups. They don't work well rotating 1 male through multiple females. Now, the other thing that you want to think about is that you want to take whatever the price is that you're going to spend on this group, and you basically want to split it up, half of the money for males and half of the money for females. So if that's $1,000, that means you're going to spend $500 on a male and $100 on each of those 5 females. So each female is going to have 1 litter per year to put her genetics to. 1 litter per year, 1 litter per year, 1 litter per year, 1 litter per year. The male is going to have how many litters every year that his genetics go into? Huh? 5. 5 litters every year for that 1 male. So you want most of your money to be stacked towards that male, but you still want to do the females justice. If it was a different number and you need 1 female and 1 male, you're probably going to spend the same amount of money on both of those. So that's the first tip. Determine what your sex ratio is to where that animal has ample opportunity to breed, but not in an unhealthy way. We're not trying to stress these guys out by running them to a million things as fast as we can. That's not really nice to the animals. When we start thinking about it like that, guys, I think we've kind of lost our first love, which is our love and admiration for reptiles. We just think of them as, hey, I got this one super high dollar male, so I'm gonna try to increase my sex ratio. Maybe it's a $20,000 male, so I wanna put in the $21,000 females and just run him ragged until he basically breeds to death. You're doing it wrong. The second point that I wanna make, each different direction that you go with breeding, you're gonna have kind of like different projects, all right? This tip is you're gonna wanna stick with one project and follow it through, really do it justice, make some awesome animals, and then when you sell those babies, you can take the money and reinvest in another project. Now, the project is gonna depend on what kind of animal it is. So let's say you like boa constrictors, okay? And you've always wanted to breed Argentine boas. Well, go ahead and start a project of a bunch of different Argentine boas. That's Boa Constrictor occidentalis. You know, maybe you're gonna get a Motley or a T-Paws, or just go with a really selectively bred pink line. But what you don't wanna do is grab one Argentine boa, one Peruvian long-tail boa, you know, one Brazilian Amarilli, and have a bunch of cool animals that you can't breed. I mean, you could breed those, you could put them together, but if you do that, you don't understand the boa industry, which really tends to frown on integrades between those different species or subspecies. If you're doing it from a morph perspective, ball pythons, reticulated pythons, super dwarf stuff, anything like that, pick one thing that you like to revolve around. So if it's ball pythons, one of the most popular morphs out there right now is like a clown ball python. That's a recessive genetic. What you might want to do is make sure that all of your different females have that clown gene in there somehow. So maybe you're gonna have, maybe you have a visual clown, maybe you have a pastel het clown, a spider het clown, or whatever else you like, an Enchi het clown. All of these other morphs though, notice, are either incomplete dominant or dominant, meaning if you have a pastel het clown and you breed her to something else that's a clown, the babies will be pastel in the first generation. So if it's gonna be, let's say, super dwarf reticulated pythons, you don't wanna start a project with amelanistic, and then a project with purple albino, and then a project with anthrax, and a project with genetic stripes. That doesn't make any sense because you're gonna have all these animals that might look cool in your collection, but they don't actually mesh together when you try to breed them. So instead, you wanna stick with a project. Don't think as much about what your collection is gonna look like. You need to think about what your babies are gonna look like. And that kind of leads us into next week's video, which would be part 2 about what animals do I buy when I want to start a reptile business. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I mean, obviously this is the way that I've done it and gone from, you know, originally a hobby, just keeping like one of every kind of reptile, and sort of focused and refined over the years to the point where I now specialize only in dwarf and super dwarf reticulated pythons, but I'm able to do it full time and support my family of six, just with this little room of super dwarf retics. It's been a lot of fun, but it's also taken a lot of careful planning and some business sense with a little bit of experience from failures and successes mixed in. So I just wanted to share that with you guys and maybe give you something to think about as you daydream through your weekend. Have a good one, guys, and we'll catch you right back here next week for part 2. If you're not subscribed, you might want to do that or you'll miss it.